Hello, welcome to Littler House. Today we are finishing up our pocket series by doing a Welt Pocket. In my opinion, the Welt Pocket is arguably the most difficult of the pockets, certainly of the ones that I'm showing you. But if you take your time and you sew very accurately and mark things, then you will be able to do this no problem. So I have three pieces here. My first piece is my actual garment piece. If you've ever sewn a Welt Pocket, you will recognize this layout. You have a rectangle of stitching lines here, and then a middle line, as well as two little triangles at the edge. That is where you will cut. You do not cut this first. We will sew first and then cut. I also have what is called a welt. That is a rectangular piece of fabric that I have already folded and pressed, but it will be poking out from the inside and creating that classic welt flap here on the top. Finally, I have a combined bottom welt and pocket bag. That's how I like to do mine. I will be stitching this on and then turning it through to become the pocket bag on the inside. So as you can see, I have marked my stitching lines on my welt as well as my start and stop lines here. Those need to align with the stitching line. Now, the fold goes above the stitching line with the raw edges. If you can imagine, once we cut this open, the raw edges are going to push through the pocket to the other side. So do make sure you have this lined up correctly with the fold on the outside of the box. Line up the start and stop as well as the stitching line, and then we will stitch that in place. Okay, first welt is attached here. Now I'm going to attach the bottom piece. I do just want to make sure that this raw edge doesn't hang over my stitching line. I would want to trim that. If it did, I don't want to catch this piece in my stitching. Just like before, we will align our start and stop points and our stitching line all the way down. Okay, so my second welt is attached here now. Again, raw edges pointing towards the middle of the box because those will get pushed inside. In fact, this whole pocket piece will go in, but you want that shorter raw edge towards the middle. All right, now what I'm going to do is fold all of this out of the way so that I can get in here to the middle, and I'm going to cut this open. I'm going to cut right along this cutting line. And the triangles, straight to the corners, being very careful not to cut my stitching or my welts, but getting absolutely as close to the corners as I possibly can. Okay, now what I'm going to do is shove everything through there to the inside of my garment. All the pieces go through. So if we flip it to the back here where you can see, all this is going to come through, including the triangles, including the kind of leftover end bits where we stopped stitching. Everything comes through to the inside. All right, now what I'm going to do is take this to the ironing board and I'm going to press this all very neatly. I want to make sure this welt is folded where it will be visible from the right side. Look at that, you can see it already starting to come together like a Welt Pocket a little bit. You can start to imagine what that's going to look like. So I'll fold that and press it, make sure my triangles are out and pressed. I'm going to hold off pressing this lower pocket bag bit for a minute and I'll show you why. Okay, so here we are pressed. As you can see, this is looking very nice and neat. You probably want to finish these edges before you do all of this so that you don't have this fraying, but of course this is just practice. Again, as you can see from the outside, we're getting our nice classic welt shape that we are wanting. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this pocket bag such that it closes this gap. You see this gap we've got in the middle? I'm going to just close the gap like that. And I'm going to take this over and press it like this now. But that you wait until you get to this point so that you can, rather than measuring and guessing where you would press, just wait and press it so you be sure to cover the gap. Okay, here's how we're looking on the front. So as you can see, we have our two welts that will meet in the middle and no gap in between them. Here's the inside. I'll turn this right side up so it's a little easier to visualize. Here's our welt we sewed on top. Our little triangles are under here. Those are important. They're going to play an important role here in a second. And then here is our pocket bag with the raw seam underneath. Well, all I'm going to do now is fold my pocket bag up and align it with the seam allowance of the top welt, because we're going to stitch those together, and that's what's going to make our bag now. Okay, let me show you from this other angle. This pocket bag is folded up to meet the raw edges of the top welt, just like that. And now what I'm going to do is stitch all the way around. Now I could skip the bottom if I wanted. I probably will. I'll probably start up here and come around the three sides like that. I like to do this piece extra long so that I can just fold it. You could have two separate pieces here if, for whatever reason you needed to use different fabrics. Now, the most important thing that we need to do in this step is keep the garment out of the way. The garment itself is not involved in this at all. This is purely pocket. So what that means is when we come up the side, we're going to be stitching these two pieces together. When we get up here, we want to catch the edge of the welt, which is right here. We want to catch the little triangle, which is right here. And we want to catch the top welt, which is right there. We got to catch all of that together. That's what's going to seal the pocket closed. So if I grab hold of all of that, including the little triangle, and fold my garment out of the way, I'll have the most success. Now, I would recommend doing this from this side so you can see the triangle. That's what we're going to do. I'm going to show you what that looks like. We're going to actually start over here, because that will be the right direction on my machine. Fold the garment out of the way. And now you can see I have my pocket bag folded. Just line that up a little better. I'm going to start down here at the fold, and I'm going to stitch along here, grabbing this edge of my bottom welt, the triangle, and my top welt all together, sort of until we get to the top of the triangle, and then we're going to pivot. All right, up here, what I'm going to do is make sure this is all aligned. I can get to my triangle without getting any of the rest of my fabric, my garment fabric. And I want to sew right next to the edge of that triangle without catching anything extra in. So I'm going to slow down, take my time. There we go. Now I'm going to lift my presser foot to pivot. I'm going to fold the garment out of the way again, because all I want now is the folded cut piece for my original rectangle. Here's my welt, my top welt. There's my pocket bag. That's my layers. Line it all up, and we can essentially sew right along the seam line of when we sewed the top welt on. All the way to this corner where our triangle is again. Remember our triangle under here? Going right here to this corner, that's where we're going to stop. Okay, pivot again. Fold the garment out of the way. Going back over the triangle again on the other side. Again, you would be using matching thread, so yours would look neater on the inside than this. You also would want to finish these edges so they're not fraying. You'll trim all your threads. Okay, but here you can see I can unfold my garment. And here's what we have. I need to press this. But there's my welt pocket. Okay, and you can see the two openings. Obviously, that's how it works, right? And then on the inside, you could run an overlocker around this edge, whatever you want to do to neaten that. But there's your pocket all done. Just let me know if you have any questions about a Welt Pocket and how that works, and I can answer those questions for you. Hope that helps.